In the fall of 2023, we picked up this 55 Bel Air coupe. Soon after, my wife and I took it on a 1,000-mile road trip through Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan. And on that trip, we really realized two things. First off, it's a wonderful car that we love and want to keep. Secondly, performance-wise, it's a complete dog, and we need to drop an LS into this thing. The donor engine was a 6.2 LS from an 07 Yukon Denali. Those had 380 horse, which would make it the perfect engine for this car. I took it over to my buddy Joe to go through it and freshen it up. It's not a race car, just a cruiser, so I wasn't looking for high horsepower. After his work, he estimated it would have about 425 horse to the crank.
My company's name is Holtoff High Performance. 6.2 LS. It's got some BTR goodies in it. It's got a good BTR cam in it, a stage 2. It's got a little bit of a rowdy cam in it, so it'll turn some heads going through the parking lot for sure. Cruising down the road, you'll hear it, but in the parking lot, you'll hear the lope pretty good. So.
Once I had the engine home, I mounted up the Metaltech motor mounts and set the engine into place so I could see where we were going to be hitting pieces that we don't want to hit. Sure enough, the first hurdle was going to be where the air conditioning compressor was hitting the front suspension cross member. All right, so the engine is all fit in and we're hitting the air conditioning compressor. Bracketry is hitting around here. So we're just going to cut all this out. And then once we get everything fit in, we'll box it all back in and make it good and strong. I'm not going to lie, the thought of cutting this thing up was pretty intimidating to me. I had never done anything like it before, but I've seen it done on TV shows and thought, well, it seems to make sense. So I checked in with a couple of my smart friends and they told me to go for it, so I did. After the metal was cut out, I refit the engine into the compartment to check for clearance, and it was going to fit perfect. I used some cardboard to make templates, and then I cut up the scrap metal that was sitting around that was the same gauge as the metal that I already cut out. And I just started welding it into place. I've stated several times before that I am among the world's worst welders, but in this case, I was actually pretty pleased with how it all came out. It needed to be good, and I'm sure that it is more than strong enough now. A little bit of grinding, and it looked great. Painted it up with some undercoating, and it was ready to go. Clearance for the air conditioning. Looks really good. The 6.2 is all positioned with the transmission now. We've got it where we want it. And I've got the front bracket from the Denali on that holds the alternator and the power steering pump. And went to put the headers on, and the headers, no real surprise, are hitting against the motor mounts. So a couple of the brain trust members came over last night and we decided we would cut the header tubes, get it the header position into place, and then would work on rebuilding the header around the mount as opposed to cutting the mount. So that's the task today. Quick update, the passenger side, no problem. Went right on, we cut the one tube and we'll be able to route it around the mount and be fine. The driver's side took cutting two tubes, the two front tubes, which we can reroute. And then for the steering box issue, decided to do the heat and beat technique. Just heated it up and beat it real good with a hammer several times. All in all, it took about an hour and a half between all the put in the air, take it down, reheat it, rebeat it, put it back up in the air, test it out, do it again, do it again, do it again. Finally got it all set though, so I think we're pretty good now. So we're going to do the oil pickup tube. This is a Melling pump on this LS, and you can see it's got two holes with flanges to mount the pump. A lot of the pickup tubes, I understand now, come with single flanges, and people get concerned that over time the nut or the bolt might loosen up just a little bit, and then it makes that connection not great, and then you could lose oil pressure. And there's a company out there called ITC Billet, and they call it an oil pickup girdle, which actually allows you to double up on the flange. There are the pieces. You can see that it's tapered so that it'll make up for the difference on the pickup. So we're going to try this out. The part number is ITC Billet 551910. And here's the single flange. So we're going to slap that thing over and give it a try. Never used one before, but we'll give it a shot. So that's what that looks like, all mounted up and torqued down. The harmonic balancer install, you got to remove this little cover positioning tool. Pretty cool. Got it off Amazon. A couple bucks, 20 bucks maybe. Use the wider side to install the seal, and then this positions the cover when you're putting it on. The people who do this every day say you should lube the crank with some motor oil. So do that. So this is a quick little device that I made really ugly really quickly to prevent the crank from spinning when I was torquing things down. It's just a piece of steel. I cut it to fit around the flywheel stuff, and hey, it worked. So I'm going to keep that around because it was very, very handy. So I'm working on the firewall, filling some holes, and for these I just, filled in the holes with the welder. Over here, one of the holes is threaded, so that'll make it easier. So what I'll do is I'll take that bolt that fits in there, I'll cut the head off, get it to the right length, screw it in with a screwdriver, and then weld over the top of it. The other ones I'll just fill. I am not a good welder. I don't claim to be, but you know what? I can fill the holes, we can put a little mud over them, and it makes them look a whole lot better. So that's going to be my process here, especially is take that one, cut the head off, and then fill things back up. So I've got the harness roughly halfway through. It's a test of patience to do this because you're avoiding a lot of things inside on the other side of the firewall, of course. And you just got to be patient getting everything out of there. If you don't, you could pull some of these connectors apart, and that would be a bad thing. I take the gasket out because it's easier to work things through the gasket when it's not in place. And at least that's what works for me. And then see, now that I have this out like this, the rubber gasket, the grommet I guess it is back here, and when it's not on the firewall, it allows it to stretch some, so that makes it a lot easier to get it where it needs to be. But again, this is an absolute patience tester. I've probably been on film, it looks really quick. I bet I've been at this for close to an hour. You got to be a contortionist. You got to get in, get up under the dash, crawl in, crawl out, pull a few more through. And I didn't film that because nobody wants to see me crawling in and out. Hell, I don't want to see me crawling in and out. But if you just have patience, it will all get through this grommet. I tested it all prior to putting it in the car, so I know for a fact that it will get through. You just have to have patience, which is not something that's ever been a real strength of mine. But quite frankly, getting into this hobby has really helped me with my patience, because you've got to have it when you're doing this kind of stuff, especially for somebody like me that doesn't do it every day, and it is just a hobby. If you expect you're going to do an LS swap in a week, you're probably incorrect in your assessment unless you've done them a bunch before and you have every part around and available to you. I spend so much time researching on the computer what part I need and fittings and all this and that. It just drives you crazy. And again, patience, patience, patience. So it's been really good for me in learning to be more patient. All right, now I have to go back inside and check some more. Getting close to having all the wires out. There we go. So I think we are to the end of what is coming outside. Never given birth, but I kind of feel like the car just did to this monster harness. Maybe it's the umbilical cord for this whole setup we're doing here, but I think we're all through now. I'll have to go on the other side and check. Fortunately, Metaltech labels everything. All the wires are labeled, whether they're in or outside of the cabin and where they go and all that, so it makes it much more palatable. Just keep working the grommet back. It gets a lot easier, obviously, as it gets thinner. We're getting really close to having everything through there.